Welcome to another installment of Taylor Newsbreak. I'm Carl Zymak. Today we're going to discuss the wide-ranging partnership between Families Against Narcotics and law enforcement agencies in the Detroit metro area. With us today are Erin Whitkopf, Program Director for Comeback's Quick Response Team of FAN, and Taylor Police Chief John Blair. And of course, we got Frank Canning in here for the very first time. John, why did you bring Frank?
Frank does everything that revolves around our Hope Not Handcuffs and FAN programs, so he's a wealth of knowledge, not only in this topic, but many others. So he should be interesting for you today, Carl.
The sarcasm drips. Welcome to the show, all three of you. It's a pleasure to have you here. Erin, let's start with you.
Sure.
Worldwide pandemic never stops giving. The number of overdoses has increased dramatically since COVID. What are you seeing out there, and what have you seen versus what have you seen in the past on both the addiction side and the support side? That's a big question, but far away.
Sure. So when COVID hit, everything shut down. When the shelter-in-place order went into effect, especially of note is our treatment facilities and support meetings, and isolation can really be detrimental for people who are impacted by addiction. So that caused people to struggle even more. Our overdose numbers increased by 50%, which took a toll, I'm sure, on our first responders who were already dealing with COVID and not knowing what we were dealing with. Addiction is a highly stigmatized issue, and as a society, we've really never prioritized treating it as a disease. We call it a disease, but we don't treat it as a disease. We routinely tell people who are looking for a bed in recovery that they have to wait 2 and 3 weeks to deal with a medical issue, which is not something we do with other diseases outside of addiction and mental illness. So it's really unfortunate, and people pass away while they're waiting for a bed into treatment. When COVID first started picking up and hospitals were filling up and beds were filling up, local industries and local businesses mobilized, and they started creating masks, and they started putting together ventilators and hand sanitizers. We also turned big buildings into like makeshift hospitals. So we can really change systems of care when we need to, because we value human life, but that's not something we've ever done for addiction. And so we need to take a look at the way that we're treating people with addiction and see if there's changes that we can make.
John, Frank, how big of a problem is addiction when it comes to law enforcement?
Yeah, Carl, not only with the addiction, but it goes hand in hand with the mental illness. And I think as you spoke about the pandemic, these are all intertwined. And that's why her work is so valuable. And that's why this message really needs to be out there. But yeah, more than half of our calls for service revolve around people, not only that have substance dependency issues, but also mental illness. So a huge, very, very vital topic to us and things that we need to tackle together.
Now, Frank, you spend a lot of time in the schools previous to the job that you're in now that you're working with organizations like FAN. What are you seeing in Taylor specifically?
See, we have a great pool of residents that are in need of the assistance of programs like FAN. Like the chief had mentioned, I think if you explore the bulk of all the property crime, whether it be as simple as the shoplifting complaints or people having stuff stolen out of their cars, or a lot of the break-ins, usually if you really explore it, you're going to see that it's a source to raise money to buy narcotics with. The bulk of these property crimes are all driven by the need to obtain narcotics. So,
Erin, for every one person affected by substance abuse, you've got an entire family affected, and often expanded from that. It's more of a family disease than anything. That's not a statistic that's often published. It's rather overwhelming when you put it into that kind of perspective, isn't it?
It can be overwhelming if you think about it that way. We have about 20 million people struggling with addiction, and so if you think about four family members, 80 million people suffering. Not knowing what to do, feeling kind of lost. It impacts our lives as family members and our health, our overall wellness. It can affect the way, how we're handling work, all kinds of things. But there are viable solutions, and community organizations need to continue to come together and offer like non-judgmental support for each other, and low barrier access to care for people who are impacted by substance use. And really, we need to continue to educate one another and talk about addiction and share our stories, because that really breaks down the stigma that keeps people silent and sick. We have a lot of really good programs for family members through Families Against Narcotics that are available right here in the Downriver area, including a forum that's just community members coming together, sharing stories and supporting one another. And that's just a once a month meeting. We also have family recovery coaching that's available. It's one-on-one support, peer-to-peer support. We have trained family recovery coaches that will walk people just through the process and help them really set up healthy boundaries and maintain a healthy lifestyle while their loved ones continue to struggle. And then we also offer Stronger Together, which is a support group for family members who have loved ones who continue to struggle. We don't have a face-to-face meeting in the Downriver area for that, but there are online options available.
Your face-to-face meeting meets in Lincoln Park, if I'm not mistaken. Is that the one
That's
we're talking about?
the fan forum, but the
Right.
Stronger Together group is
Okay.
a different type of group. It's a 12-step support group for family members who have loved ones continue to struggle.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the quick response team.
Sure.
QRT provides services for both the family and the person suffering from the addiction. Can you elaborate on the program? How's it come together?
Yeah, so that program launched in February of 2020. We started with just one team in Sterling Heights. We are now working with 18 police departments across the state of Michigan in 7 different counties. Taylor is one of our community partners. Our teams are comprised of police officers in plain clothes, a peer recovery coach, and a family recovery coach. When we visit the homes of people who have either suffered a non-fatal overdose or who've otherwise had contact with law enforcement as a result of their substance use issues. And we just go to their doors. We offer them recovery resources. Here in Taylor, we actually have a little bit of a unique team because we're partnered with the Beaumont Taylor Teen Health Center.
Okay.
So we have a social worker on the team who is able to offer help to adolescents in the home who have been impacted by the adults in the house who have substance use issues, which is really unique and very important to ongoing resolutions to this type of problem, because it's very, very difficult to find resources and support for adolescents, and they do a great job in that program. So we're lucky to have that partnership in this community.
John Frank, does this extend out to the court? I know the court does various programs too. How does that interact, or does it?
Yeah, our court here in Taylor has a drug court as well, so we try to get the stigma removed away from these people that are suffering from this dependency. That goes hand in hand with the Hope Not Handcuffs. We want to provide hope to people, not put them in jail, not the handcuff stuff. So yeah, the court's working with us to get these people that truly need treatment, not incarceration, because that breaks that vicious cycle that we've been dealing with for year after year after year.
Frank, could you explain the Hope Not Handcuffs program? The basics.
FAN has organized it to a fashion to which someone that is in the grips of addiction, if they have that moment of clarity where they say, this is the time that I want to go, they can walk into one of the subscribing police departments, which we are one of them, and they just simply walk to the front desk, meet with the officer assigned there, and just say, I need an angel. No questions are asked. We as law enforcement will contact the Hope Not Handcuffs network and request an angel, and they will dispatch someone to the police station to meet with this person with the purpose of getting them into treatment as soon as possible.
Is it hard to get rid or distill down the whole stigma thing and the fear of the police, and quite frankly the reverse? I mean, police, if you run into a certain person 50 times and then you get the same person in one of these programs, is it hard for your people to deal with this?
I don't think it's hard for our people, and I can tell you, even today, just today, before we were walking over here, we had a gentleman come in with a family member, and you could see the relief on his face. The lieutenant and I didn't question him at all. We just said, no, we're going to get you some help. Thank you for being here. Our officer on the front desk was going to make that simple one phone call, contact FAN, and they take it over from there. But it's relief. We can see it in their eyes.
Yeah.
And that's where your group really steps in and
Yes.
does its job.
That's right, yep. One of the main goals of the quick response team is to build bridges between law enforcement, first responders, and people who are at risk. And you know, every department that participates in this program has seen changes in their community where those bridges are built. We also follow up with everyone who accepts help through the quick response team and the Hope Not Handcuffs program for 1 year. But specifically through the quick response team, we ask people questions about the presence of law enforcement during the visit. And this was not something that I expected. Judge Davis will say a little bit different about that. She knew this was going to happen, but every person, we ask them questions about their perceptions of law enforcement as a result of the QRT visit. And overwhelmingly, we get very positive responses. I haven't checked this number. It changes, of course, as we do these follow-up calls, but last time I checked and wrote a report for our grant funders, it was about 78% of people said that their perception of law enforcement improved or greatly improved as a result of the QRT visit. So that stigma really changes both ways for the people that we visit and for the officers who do this work through the quick response team. You know, a lot of times they see people at their absolute worst, but when they're going out with our teams, they get to see some wins, they get to see people's lives change, and they don't just see them at their worst, they get to see them get help, and it's really a powerful change in the dynamics.
Anybody can take this one, but since these are help organizations, okay, what do you usually see for those people who aren't out there, aren't involved in drugs at all, okay? They're not exposed to them, yada, yada. What do you folks usually see when that person comes in and is looking for help? What do you see out of that person?
Yeah, well, I've personally been up there when people have come in. Sometimes our officers on the front desk are not 100% sure what to do, and you see a look of apprehension, and you see a look of relief. My example again today, that was a look of relief. I saw someone that had finally got to his breaking point, and he was ready for help. And in my opinion, looking at him, he just couldn't wait for this. I've seen other people where you could see they're apprehensive. Can I trust the police? Are they going to bring me into the back? Is this going to turn into another jailing on me? So I'm sure we run the full gamut spectrum. You know, is it the apprehension? Is it the relief? Is it just something where I have to do this because my family member's dragging in there? So I think we're all over the spectrum with the type of responses we get from these people.
Erin, do you really have to buoy up people's spirits at that point in time? It seems like shame would come, that factor would come into play too.
You mean when they walk into the police department?
Yeah.
No, I think the best thing to do is really reflect their feelings and just listen and offer them whatever kind of help they're asking for. Typically when someone comes into Hope Not Handcuffs, they're looking to get into treatment. Through the quick response team, it's a little bit different. There's all different levels of care that people are either looking for or not looking for. But with Hope Not Handcuffs, people are asking for help that day. They want to get into treatment, and so we really don't try to change anyone's feelings. We just accept them as they are and help them navigate the system.
The nation is so divided these days, John. You and I have talked about this a million times. How do you work past that with the general public? I mean, you have the police force buying into the support program. You have the support program, obviously, all in, okay? But the general population, is it hard to get people on board these days, or isn't it? I mean, this strikes me as pretty much a get behind it.
Yeah, I try to keep things in perspective, Carl. And the big hot topic right now is gun control, violent crime, homicide deaths from handguns or guns. We see in America about 30,000 firearm deaths a year, about 30,000, those include suicides. Now our addiction, 100,000.
Yeah.
And I try to keep that in perspective, so I know that I have to have some sort of a guideline. Which one do I tackle?
Right.
And the answer is both. But I know that perspective that this is killing many more people and impacting many more lives than even these hot topics that are out every day that we see our politicians dealing with. So it's a tough course, but we have to run this course. Otherwise, things are going to continue to spiral out of control.
Frank, when the department first got involved in this kind of support group effort, was it tough? You relate to the cop on the beat, the guys in the patrol car.
Yeah.
What was it like for them? Was it a hard buy-in, or?
Yes, but for different reasons. Because it required a different thought process of how they do their job. I've been fortunate enough to have a career that's taken me down a path of many community service type programs, working in the schools or participating in the Cop on a Corner program. So I've had a great experience working one-on-one with the public. The patrol division, it's a regimented routine. They do the same thing, and they're used to doing their job a certain way. And then now we're saying, hey, listen, we're going to do it this way.
Right.
And at first, this is an adjustment period, but like the chief had mentioned a couple minutes ago, we deal with a lot of the same people. And there comes a point where it can be frustrating, and what do I do now? It's the same thing over and over again. So now we have an outlet that we can redirect this person, like I said, from coming to jail again to let's get you treatment. Everyone wins. Hopefully the person that's in addiction can have a second chance on a sober life, and the community wins by property crime going down. The uniformed police win by now having one less person to have to address on a police enforcement level. I mean, if we can just, you're using the theory of if we have reached one, we've done our job, but we're reaching more than one. And it's slow to get moving. It's been a couple of years, but it's been a great program.
John, you and I talked after the Minnesota Floyd incident, okay?
Yes.
And there was so much defund the police and everything kind of went off the tracks. Aren't these the type of programs that really were at the really at the discussion level at that time, the pertinent portion?
Yeah, and that's what some of the things people don't understand. When you defund the police or chop budgets, we can only do the minimum, respond to simple calls for service. We can't work with FAN. We can't work with any of these other outreach, any community policing things, because we're doing the minimum because we have the minimum. So when you think that you're reducing police and that's going to reduce all these violence against people, all it's doing is perpetuating that cycle of criminality, and it's harming the community worse.
Right. And so many of these questions, there's not one single panacea. There's not one single answer. There's a whole bunch of answers to these problems. Erin, I was going to say, do you have to be an addict to seek help?
Well, FAN primarily helps people who have been impacted by substance use issues. So you can either be, someone who is directly impacted or a family member who has a loved one who's struggling with substance use issues. Yes.
What if somebody is they're uncertain where maybe their brother or sister or father or mother are headed?
Yeah.
I would assume that you'd help them if they came forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty. When it comes to help, what is help from your angle? I mean, how do you define that? Is it medical assistance? Is it life assistance? Is it all of the above?
Yeah. Well, everyone is looking for something different, but any positive change that someone wants to make in their life is help that we will offer to them. If someone is seeking abstinence, and there are certain ways that avenues that we can get someone there, whether we help them navigate the system to find detox and residential, outpatient therapy, whatever that is, to help them simply abstain from using drugs. If they need medication-assisted treatment, we'll help them find a facility, that accepts their insurance and is located in a community where they can travel to. If someone is maybe going to continue to use drugs, but they need to stay safe and want to stay alive while they do that. We will help them locate harm reduction resources in their community to help them do that. Whatever positive change someone wants to make, we're gonna help them get there, and we're gonna stick with them until they feel like they've achieved the goals that they're looking for.
Erin, I know these two gentlemen pretty well, and I know their backgrounds. What's your background? How did you find yourself to be where you're seated today?
The disease of addiction has impacted me for my entire life. I grew up in a house where both of my parents struggled, and then I had multiple family members, including my brother, which was really the catalyst for me getting involved with FAN. And you know, when his disease really was out of control, I was desperate for help. And my first FAN meeting, I fell in love with the organization right away. There was finally other siblings. You know, I went to a lot of 12-step meetings, but there were never any siblings at the table. I always felt kind of out of place. But right away, I was sitting with a really diverse group of people. There were other siblings, there were judges, police officers, concerned parents, just so many people from the community. And that was, I think, in 2010 or 2011, and they haven't been able to get rid of me since. I went from a volunteer to now directing the quick response team. So I'll be there probably for the rest of my life. I have other family members who are in different stages of their recovery, and I found so much support at FAN, and I've learned so much, I think more than I could have ever learned in any classroom. I really encourage people to just learn as much as they can. Really, if you don't know what to do, knowledge is power. People say that and it sounds kind of cliche, but it's the absolute truth.
John, Frank, is there a logical next step to many of these programs? What would you look down the way?
Well, I think what you're doing is a huge step for us. You're making people aware. If they don't know these resources are available, we are never going to make progress. So this awareness is a huge thing for us. I think not only law enforcement, but these organizations like FAN, but the courts need to become intimately involved as well. And I think if we run all three of those together, I think we can head towards a solution to eliminate or at least reduce the amount of substance dependency that's out there, getting the treatment to the people that need it the most.
Frank, you were in the schools for quite a while. Any idea of maybe making this some type of a road show where you take it to the schools and try and get people at their young stages?
So one of the programs that FAN does that is a community outreach. We have recently hit all of the local hotels in town to instruct and deliver Narcan because sometimes you can't wait for first responders to arrive.
Explain Narcan. Explain that.
Maybe Erin is.
Okay, Erin, fire away.
It's an opioid overdose reversal medication. So the type that we use is just you use it, squirt it right up someone's nose, and it's very important that it is used as soon as possible during an opioid overdose. And then, of course, we want to make sure that we get rescue breaths to the person and always call 911 because it's a short-acting medication and someone can slip back into an overdose if they don't get medical attention.
Now, narcotic, carry that?
All of our officers are trained in carry. It's a very simple deployment. Squirt up the nose.
What's the cost on that?
And there's no cost for us. Yeah,
but I mean, what is the general cost?
That's a great question, Erin.
I was just curious more than anything else.
Yeah. So there's a standing order in the state of Michigan that anyone can get it from most pharmacies carry it now. You can get it for free from so many community organizations. FAN does free naloxone training, so you can go right to our website. Under programs, there's a naloxone training tab. We do at most of our FAN forums do Narcan training, and we'll give free medication that anyone takes the training. Tons of community organizations do that for free. So if you your insurance has a large copay and you can't afford to get it from your pharmacy, you can just get it from community organizations all over the state.
In a perfect world, Erin, where are we in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years with these kind of situations?
Yeah, that's an interesting question.
Yeah. Putting you on the spot.
Yeah. Well, my personal opinion may differ from that of my employer, so I don't know how I can answer that, and I don't know, it may differ from that of law enforcement.
I'll be optimistic. I would love to see these deaths cut in half.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think
There you
that
go.
to me is
That's a good
something
one.
that I could see and put my finger on. It doesn't have to be cut in half, but if I saw a substantial reduction, I would know these programs are working. And that's because they've continued to go up each year.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's cut them in half.
Okay, Erin. what do
And
you
if I
think?
were to take a stab at it, I
Yeah.
would say that, in a perfect world, there would be less stigma. There would be treatment on demand. When people ask for treatment, they wouldn't have to wait, and there would just be less barriers. People just shouldn't have to work so hard to get into treatment. Maybe there wouldn't even be a need for Hope Not Handcuffs, where we are just working so hard to help people overcome all of these barriers to care that they face every single day.
Okay. Anything we've missed? Frank, you were ready to say something.
Yeah, so as the police representative for the quick response team, I've had an opportunity to go out virtually twice a week since its inception here. And I think we touched on earlier about the stigma and the response to the people that are currently struggling with addiction. And of all the house calls that I've gone on, I mean, there might be two from memory where the person that was in addiction did not want to even entertain a conversation. Everyone that seems, to my experience, in a response to someone that's in addiction, you don't really see anyone that enjoys it. And it's a matter of them being at the time where they're ready to kick it. And sometimes it might take several opportunities of treatment. And this isn't, it's a hard thing for them to overcome. But some of the feedback you receive from these folks are, I've heard things from, God sent you to me today, or I've been wanting these services for a long time. I didn't have a clue where to go. So my experience is, as an outsider kind of just getting introduced to it intimately, is that the system, for whatever reason, is incredibly complicated for someone to navigate, if not impossible, on their own. So with what FAN does is allows the system to get navigated by a recovery coach or an advocate for this person, and it makes it much easier. Certainly the system could stand to be overhauled, however that happens. I don't, it's above my pay grade, but things could be easier for these folks that are in need of help. And for everyone that's in addiction, we've talked on earlier, there's an entire household of family that is concerned, they're worried, they're crying, they're emotional of the family of someone that's supporting someone that's in addiction, and they don't know where to turn. And your heart breaks for the people, for everyone involved. And it just seems like the big thing at this point is awareness, because a lot of folks don't know that we have these services available to them. And I'm not exactly sure what the answer is, or how, if it's word of mouth or advertising, but there's always, as one of the infomercials say, operators are standing by. I mean, we're ready and willing and able, and the mechanism is there to get them the help. It's just a matter of reaching out.
Right. And Erin, it sounds like you and your crew are the reach outers, so to speak.
We're ready.
Yeah, you are ready. Have we missed anything? Anything that you guys can think of? Anything you want to point out before we go?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No,
Well,
I
John?
just ask people to get involved. If anything that we've said today struck a nerve with you, whether a family is substance abuse, dependency issues, or you just find this something that's an interest to you. If you can't physically volunteer, financially, if you can offer support to these organizations, whatever you can do to help us spread the word and to kind of eliminate this disease that's affecting our country would be greatly appreciated.
Well, fantastic. Erin, before we came on the show, sent me some information that we're going to be putting in slide form that's going to come after we sign off here. If you need any help in these type of situations, please take a good look at those slides. They'll be scrolling down. They'll have contact information, group information, meeting information on them. Erin, John, Frank, pleasure to have you guys on. We're going to have to do this again.
Okay.
Maybe we'll we'll circle back in another 6 months or 9 months or something, and maybe in a different format we can bring together some other. You have any success stories out there that you'd like to bring on? Do people?
I'm sure we could
that might
figure
be
that out,
might
yeah.
be very compelling.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's a great
that might be
idea.
a lot of fun. But I wanted to say a real pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
John and Frank, as always, you guys are always welcome on the show. I know John knows that because he's been on the show so many times. For everybody here, I'm Carl Zymak, Sam, Joe in the behind the scenes in the control room. Have a good day, and we'll see you on another Taylor Newsbreak.